So picture this. It's the year of our Lord, 2030, and there are 2.1 million jobs, trade related, specific skill jobs available. We're in a deficit. We're not able to provide those skills for whatever it be, whether it's our military, just our manufacturing or infrastructure, whatever that looks like. That's an issue. And if you look at traditional education right now, our goal always is get the degree, make the big money, work in the corporate environment, but that's not everybody's goal. And there absolutely need to be people who are not taking that same path in order for society to thrive. I think back to times like with visionaries like Booker T. Washington. Back in 1880, when he was establishing Tuskegee University for freed slaves, he knew that ultimately slaves were going to have to find a way to be able to contribute to society so that they could ultimately live independent lives. And part of his approach was just to lift the veil of ignorance as it related to literature, as it related to writing, those kinds of skills that they had been deprived of for all of those years. But also, slaves needed immediate action. They needed an immediate change to be able to do what they needed for themselves. So alongside of teaching them to read and write was also setting them up for success with the skills that they already had, those trade skills. I think about that, and I think about how that mindset, honestly, especially looking at these trends, is exactly what we need. So having programs in schools that are solely dedicated to not only teaching the kids how to read, write, they're also there to help them be exposed to what is out there in the world that they could possibly be good at, that they could possibly be interested in. Having those is so important. So today we'll be talking with Harry Crum, who is a career technical coach, counselor for schools in Alabama. And he has been doing this kind of work for several years on top of being a football coach for 20 years as well. And I think it's extremely relevant given what we're dealing with right now in these kinds of deficits in this skilled worker field. So if you are interested to hear a little bit about this, whether you're a parent, you're a student yourself, or just a good old functioning member of society, pull up a chair, take a seat, and let's talk about it. All right, Mr. Harry Crum, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
For those of you who don't know and can't see the family resemblance, this is my uncle, one of them, and I'm glad that he took a little bit of time today to sit down and talk with us. So I really wanted for our discussion to be around the importance of exposure in primary and secondary education to alternative learning and earning opportunities. So what I mean by that is right now we've seen where there's been some studies and some information pushed out recently where there's going to be an even bigger need for people who are equipped with the skills to do like trade work. So whether that's electricians or plumbers or whatever that looks like. And right now there's not, I guess, a ton of people out there that are doing that. And so it's very high in demand. And you've worked in several different areas, several different schools. And so I wanted to get your feedback on that, being that that's kind of the space that you're in right now at your current position. But just wanted us to sit down and talk a little bit about that and put some information out there for folks who may be impacted by it one way or another, especially those with kids.
Okay, well, I have a background in technical education. I'm certified in technology. This is my 29th year in education. It's been over 25 of those years in career tech education, and grown to really, really love it. I started off in technology, and I worked in several capacities. I've taught technical drawing. I've taught digital media, and I've also taught career preparedness, which is a course now that's required in Alabama for ninth graders. It's required for graduation. And so I'm also certified in physical education, and I have a master's in learning design and technology. So I have a wealth of knowledge about a lot of different things, and I've used that over the years to, along with just natural gifts and talents. I think that God has blessed me with the ability to do a lot of things. And one gift that I have, I think, is the gift of communication, especially with young people. And I've always had a counselor's heart, whether it was looking at kids' transcripts and going through and doing if not an official audit, but doing audits for kids that were looking to go to college and were looking for initial eligibility with the NCAA. So I had to know those requirements. And by being a head football coach for about 20 years, I had to know the rules of High School Athletic Association, had to know the rules of eligibility, had to know how to communicate with parents, had to know how to communicate with stakeholders, had to know how to talk on the radio. So I had to know how to do a whole lot of different things. And so I come from a background in which my father was a welder, and he was also a bulldozer mechanic. And so I learned early on about hands-on in going to work. My grandfather was a carpenter, a general contractor. I had an uncle who was an electrician. My mother was a nurse. I had another uncle that was a plumber. So the trades, as a lot of people like to call them, were embedded in my family. So I got a taste of it early on and extensively. What I saw over the years, though, was that when I was growing up early on in the late 60s and early 70s, those types of career paths were really focused on and well respected. But somewhere in I would say the mid 80s, people started treating what we call career tech education now. They call it vocational education then. They started treating it as a less than career path. And for, I would say 10 to 15 years, people treated people or students that had a desire to go career tech, they treated them as if they were less than. But what we found out now today is if you have those career tech backgrounds, say automotive technician, what we used to call a mechanic, you can't get your car looked at a dealership for under $120. And so now the people that you consider less than are making more than the
A lot of
teachers
people.
and assistant principals, a lot of times more than coaches. And so they had to revisit that because they found out how vital a lot of these career paths were.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there's just been more and more information about that coming out in recent years. They anticipate there being, hand over fist, just a lot of additional need in the next 10 to 15 years. And you're going to look up and most of your professionals around you are going to be people who have those kinds of skills. So
Well, if you look at
very, very important.
if you look at health occupations, and I'm not talking about doctors, I'm talking about people who have a desire to go on and become LPNs, RNs, certified registered nurse practitioners. They are making a whole lot of money. If you want to be a travel nurse, in some places you can make $100,000 a year working 3 days a week. If you have the ability and the desire, you're not really attached, and you can go on the road, you can make a whole lot of money. And there's a need because a lot of people have left the field during COVID. We lost a lot of people. But if you are into health occupations at this time, the sky's the limit for you.
So just to talk about like where you are right now, where are you professionally? What are you doing? How are you serving in this capacity?
Like for the last 3.5 years, I've worked as the Career Tech Education Counselor for the Workforce Development Center in Conecuh County, Evergreen, Alabama. For those of you who don't know, Conecuh County is where Conecuh sausages are made. I'm not into pork like that, but that's a different story. But I've worked there for 3.5 years, and one of the things that some parts of my job description is to audit transcripts to make sure that our students are following their career pathway in sequential order. So if you have a career pathway, and at the Workforce Development Center we have 5. We have agri-science, we have welding, we have STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and we have business technology, and we have health occupation. So you have to, within those pathways, 4 of those pathways, you have to have a foundational course, which is an introductory course. Then you have 2 advanced courses. If you pass those successfully with a grade of C or higher, then you become a completer. And that is our goal, is to have what we call credentialed completers. What is a credential? A credential is when you pass a certification test or exam assessment within that pathway. That's important because now in the state of Alabama, you have to have what you call a college readiness indicator. And a college readiness indicator is required for graduation now. And so how do you get a college readiness indicator? Well, there's a number of ways you can do it. You can do it by becoming a completer. You can get it by getting a credential, passing a test within that pathway. You can get it by taking the work keys, which is an examination that all of our high school seniors must take. And the work keys is a workplace readiness assessment, and some employers require it. So that's another way that you can get what you call a college or career readiness indicator. You can get it by making a qualifying score on the ACT, within one of the subtests on the ACT. You can also get it by taking dual enrollment classes. And a significant number of our students take dual enrollment. If you take a dual enrollment class and you pass it, you're considered college and or career ready.
Okay.
We really push the dual enrollment. It gives our kids an opportunity to use those courses as a way to complete their high school requirements and also get college credit at the same time.
Okay.
So there are a number of ways that kids can better themselves. And, that dual enrollment aspect is a great way to do it.
So how much what you guys are doing internal to the school system that you're in, how much is driven by what you see external to Alabama, to the area? And what I mean by that is, let's just say there is a greater need for an electrician. I'm just throwing, because that's what everybody's saying. You guys then tailor your approach with your primary educational group of kids to kind of say, hey, you guys, I know you want to, I don't know, be a carpenter, but look, there's something over here that's really high in demand, and kind of talk them through or help them to understand that there is a great opportunity in another field.
Well, a lot of times what we have is a kid may have an internal idea or motivation for what it is that they want to do. So we give them what they call the Cooter assessment. And the Cooter assessment is really an interest survey. One of the things we found out is that if a kid is not interested in a pathway, no matter how dynamic it might be, if they're not interested in it,
they're not going to do well.
They're not going to do well. So we give them that interest survey, and then we try to guide them toward where their interests are. And I'm not saying it's necessarily spot on, but what we do, we sit down with them and we go over the assessment with them and say, okay, look, this is what, based on your answers to questions, and the questions are loaded. They don't know which questions are geared toward whatever. But when you compile their answers and they get a score, it kind of gives you an indication of what the kid's interest really is. Now we do have workplace or occupational indexes that tell you, hey, here's the career outlook for health occupations. Here's the career outlook for welding. And we do make that information known to the kids and say, hey, look, this field is going to be jumping. I'll give you an example right now, AI, artificial intelligence. And so we have STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And one of the courses in there is a computer science course that's sponsored by Project Lead the Way. And so if you are a person that is interested in coding, programming, what we used to call programs a long time ago, they simply call apps now. And so now, with the help of AI and a whole lot of other stuff that's out here, you can create your own apps. And if you find a kid that's interested in that, you think logically, think sequentially and scientifically, you might want to gear them toward computer science, engineering. Yeah. And so we have that available to them. We want to start as early as primary school in exposing kids to certain things. Now, will they comprehend it fully? Maybe not. But if they see that a person is becoming something, and it may generate an interest. If they never see it, they will never think that they can be it. And
Right.
so
That exposure is key.
it is, yes, it definitely is. And then on the middle school level, by the time they get to middle school later, grades after having been exposed, and now we have what we call career exploration. So you get a little bit more in depth. You can spend a couple of weeks on various pathways and various job opportunities, and they can kind of now get a feel for, okay, all right, I'm knowing a little bit more about this. And then when they get in high school, you can actually get the application part, and they can get their hands on. And they have the virtual reality now, which we have implemented in the middle schools. And by the time those kids put those headsets on, and they go through a virtual situation where they're a virtual electrician, and they're on a high on a pole, and they're up there, and they making connections, and it seems real to them. That's when a lot of the kids say, "Oh yeah, now that's what I want to do." So virtual reality and AI has taken this thing to another level. When you get the simulators, the kids can now get a real feel for what what a career path is like.
That's cool. So do you get those things through grants or?
Yeah, it's not free. You must pay a fee. And so we have to write grants. And me and my former director at the Workforce Development Center, she did such a good job with what was going on at the Workforce Development Center that they say, well, hey, we want you to move. We want you to transfer down to the high school. Because if you could jumpstart the Workforce Development Center, and we got a lot of positive feedback and a positive acclaim for what we were doing, they wanted her to transfer to the high school. And so, of course, she wanted me to transfer with her. And so I didn't necessarily want to leave the Workforce Development Center because I love career tech. But we saw a need, and I'm a counselor at heart. I'm always trying to help kids get better at this, that, or the other. And so we made the transition, and I think that if we get buy-in, I think it'll be a good situation.
So what did you do? I know you said you started your career in the kind of technical teaching element, and you've done that pretty much the whole entire time, and that's turned into career development and all that as well. What are the logistical things you had to do to actually get to where you could do this for the school? So you talk about certifications and things like that. Was there any additional education you had to do? Because I know you have your bachelor's degree and everything, but did you have to get anything additional? What did that path look like?
Well, I was initially hired at the Workforce Development Center, not necessarily because of my counseling skills, but I tell people I'm a counselor by nature. So the things that counselors do as far as the academic portion of it, I've been doing just naturally for years because I was always interested in what I could do to help a kid to diagnose his current situation and make it better. So working for over 25 years as a coach, that helped me in so many ways because I had to be able to communicate with players, with parents, with teachers, and always checking grades, always looking into their background and trying to see what I could do to motivate them, because as a head coach, you have to wear so many hats. You have to be a nurse, you have to be a carpenter, you have to be a psychologist. It's just so many things that you have
Sometimes
to do.
A foster parent.
That's right. That's right. And I was talking with one of my former players today that ended up getting a scholarship to Alabama A&M, and he said,
Wow.
Coach, you were the closest thing to a father that any of us ever had. And he said, I would not be the man that I am today had it not been for you. So you have to be invested in what you do, and you have to love your craft, and I do. I went back and got my master's. One thing I would say that was an extra impetus for me getting my master's was when I saw my oldest son get his master's, and I was like, I got to go back and get my master's now. And I got it. And I got it in learning design and technology. And I learned some things about research, and I learned some things about distance learning, which is now all over the place. Everybody does it. So, virtual, they call it virtual now, where everybody can go online and you can learn. I guess you can learn everything, probably except becoming a doctor online. I don't know if I want to go to a doctor that got his degree online, but you can almost learn anything else, any technical field. You can learn a lot of that stuff online. Now I know that
Yeah.
there are some hands-on portions that you have to participate in, but a lot of our kids are taking dual enrollment courses, and a lot of our kids are taking what you call access courses online.
Okay.
And so I've got certified as an access facilitator, got certified in learning design and technology, and we're constantly doing professional development. In fact, we're going to a counselors conference sometime in November. We'll go to Career Tech Education Conference every summer in Mobile. And so we just try to learn the latest trends and just try to keep up on everything, because technology is changing so fast.
Yeah. So let's back up for a minute
Okay.
and let's talk a little bit more about you. So we know you have your bachelor's. We know you went back and got your master's so that your son would stay in his place, your oldest
Yeah,
son.
okay.
He wouldn't try you, right?
Right.
So what led you to even this profession, to teaching, period, to educating? So in school, what were your interests? What kind of landed you where you did, ultimately in a little itty bitty town in Alabama, which you grew up in a little itty bitty town in Alabama, but another one,
Okay,
and being
well,
there for so many years?
when I was in college, the end thing at the time was majoring in business administration. Everybody, I'm going to go major in business. I'm going to go major in business. So I followed suit, and I did the same thing. And I found out that, it was a struggle for me because it didn't really hold my interest. I was semi-interested, so I could do it, but it was a struggle. And one time I took an exam, and I didn't do so well on it. And the professor told me, he said, I think that you ought to consider business technology. And I was insulted, because to me he was saying, you're not smart. You're not smart enough to be in the School of Business, and their School of Business at the University of Houston was very popular. And I was really insulted. But you fast forward 13 years later, I got my certification in technology. And what I took was as criticism from him was probably some very sound advice. And so after that, I didn't major in education. I ended up working for Houston Independent School District as a permanent sub, a long-term assignment.
Okay.
And they gave me some kids that nobody else wanted to teach. And it was a self-contained situation. I had 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, probably about 12 kids. And at that time, I figured out, hey, this is what I should be doing. And I got a love for education at the same time at that time, but I wasn't certified. So I went back and got my certification in technology, and I learned a lot about the different pathways, and I learned a lot about what was actually already going on in my family, because in my family there were nurses and carpenters and plumbers and air conditioning and refrigeration workers and welders and bulldozer mechanics. So it was all around me all the time, and I just had to open my eyes and see it.
So initially, just because, I have a little bit of insider information, I know that education was very important to your dad, my grandfather. And so he himself only had, I think, only about an 8th grade education. 10th grade. Okay. But you said that he was very hands-on. He had his own business.
Right.
He was the first Black county commissioner in Butler County, probably in a broader sense as well. But I was curious to know, did you ever at any point, because he was you had both. You had someone who was very much like, get your lesson,
right,
get good grades, do what you got to do. But you also had someone who was making their living and providing by doing this trade-like work.
Right.
Did you ever, as you were getting into this field, find yourself having to kind of shift your own mentality to be like, okay, every kid is not going to go to college.
Yeah.
Every kid is not going to become a doctor? Or did you inherently kind of go in with that? Or is that something you kind of had to develop over
just
time?
one thing that I say that I learned from coaching is that every kid has a different motivation, and every kid has the ability to accomplish certain tasks. Maybe not to the same
Right.
degree as another person, but there are some tasks that he can do better than somebody who may be brilliant in another area. And so
Right.
I learned that I had to. They call it task analysis in informal education, and that simply means breaking things down into simpler steps. Well, when you're coaching and you may have a child that is not as gifted as another child, you have to find yourself doing task analysis on a routine basis. Well,
Right.
through that, you can learn though, hey, this kid may not be able to do this as well, but he can do this, and maybe he can do that, and he can do the other. You apply that to career preparation. Okay, he may not be a brain surgeon, but he may be a heck of a plumber or an
Yeah.
electrician or a welder or somebody that works on the gas pipeline. And I found out over the years that I've had a lot of players like that, and they are doing very well. They have the
Yeah.
ability to feed their families, and they are productive citizens. So we have to look at it through that lens,
Yeah.
and stop making kids feel like they're less than because they choose the CTE route.
Yeah. Would you say, I mean, in coaching football, we know probably the general demographic of the kids that you were dealing with, but you were dealing with young boys, young men from different backgrounds, different family situations, in typically underserved areas. Did you see an even greater need in that environment for alternative routes, just different things? Do you think it's more, do you think it's, I don't want to say disproportionate because it sounds bad, but do you think there's more of a need for that exposure and for that, like, hey, you guys, you can do something else? Like,
Well, one thing that I see in the disproportionately underserved communities is that there is a feel of a need for immediacy when it comes to going to work. So
yeah,
they look at, why would I want to go and take English and history again when I hated it in high school? And so
yeah,
if I can take a more direct path and take the courses that are going to get me certified, if I can get that welding rod in my hand and I can get an instructor that shows me how to do this, well, yeah, maybe he'll have to show me the melting point of these various metals, but I don't have
right.
to write an essay on it. I don't have to write a term paper on it.
I could just remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so yes, and so I
yeah,
think that's what we have, and the kids buy into. I don't have to deal with, in their mind. It may be a lot of the fluff. I can get to the meat of the situation. I can get my certification in a year and a half. If I want to get my CDL, I can get maybe take 6 months worth of courses, and I can get certified, and I can be on the road, and I can be making money. I'm not mad at a kid
yeah,
for doing that.
yeah.
In fact, if that's what his desire is, I'm going to push him toward that.
So you guys do have these different paths for these kids to take, whether it be welding, carpentry, electrician, plumber, whatever. You have all these different paths. Is there ever any element that you guys kind of layer on related to business management in a way? Because I think a lot of what ends up happening for some people, or what they don't see initially, is that this can parlay into your own thing. So you're just as much as you're in demand working for someone else doing this same work, you still will be, and you can run your own shop.
Well,
So is there any element of that
yeah,
infused into
through
what y'all are
business, we
doing?
have something called entrepreneurship, and we also have that as an access class where you can take it online. We don't have an entrepreneurship class, live class in person, but you can take that online, and I think that you can get it at Reed State. And that's the thing, and that's another thing, because of the latest trends that are going on. Community colleges have so much that they can
Yeah.
offer for little to no money. We have through the Alabama Community College system, you have these Skills for Success classes, these certifications that you can get, some of them in 2 weeks, some of them in a month's time. And just to give you an example, heavy equipment operator. And we have implemented that, or Reed State has implemented that on our campus. So a child can come through and learn how to drive a skid steer and an excavator right on our campus. Now, they're not on campus 100% of the time, but they have seasons or slots when they go because they serve several different schools. They serve Connecticut County, they serve, I think it's Escambia County and Monroe County. So they rotate. But that child, last year we had 8 kids that got certified as heavy equipment operators.
Wow.
And then they got summer job working as heavy equipment operators. And that they can see the correlation between me getting my certification and me getting a job that pays me well. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that tangible, trying to make that real to the student.
If you had to spout out an ideal situation for a kid that starts in your program in the 9th grade, whatever path they take, what would that look like? What would their matriculation through the program, through school look like? And where would you want them to end up as a senior and say, or graduating senior and say, okay, you're right on track. Like you can go do whatever you want to do.
And I'll give you an example of one of my former students that I had at Keith High School. And this young man was Jorge Del Angel. And
I remember
Jorge had an interest in going to school, and he had an interest in agriculture. And I use agriculture as an example. So when a kid comes in, initially, foundational course is called Fundamentals of Agri-Science. And so it's an overview course, and you learn a lot of different things about a lot of different things. And we have on campus, we have a greenhouse. We have chickens. We used to have cows, but that kind of became an expensive proposition for us. But we have the greenhouse, and they do projects such as composting. They'll plant a garden. They did some construction on the greenhouse, and they grow vegetables. They give some of them away, but they get to see the process. So that's the foundational level. Next level is advanced. So now after you complete your fundamentals of agri-science, now you can take poultry science. Now you can really focus on all the inner workings of how to grow your own chickens from the egg to the pullet size, all the way to a grown hen or rooster. Now you got a hen in less than a year's time is laying eggs, and we're getting the eggs. Can't sell the eggs, but you can take the eggs and you can give them away to people within the community. And so we've had that in the last 3 years, and more eggs than we knew what to do with. And so you learn about the life cycle of the chicken. You learn about the industry, the poultry industry, and you have a certification called the BQA. When a kid gets that certification, he can take it. And some employers look for certifications when they're hiring. So if you have a certification, all things being equal, and they can decide between two people that they want to employ. If you have the BQA certification, that may give you a leg up on somebody who doesn't. Just as the Work Keys exam, which we took today, seniors took today, some employers look for Work Keys certification. And all things being equal, if you have two potential employees, there's nothing distinguishing about them. If one of them has the Work Keys certification, he may have the upper hand. So another advanced course that we have is veterinary science. And we have some kids that say that they want to go on to become veterinarians. And that's easy to say, but knowing the work that is involved, and they get an extensive understanding of what's involved in being a veterinarian, that may pique their interest enough to say, I might want to do this, or that's too much for me to do. But
like I like dogs, but I wasn't trying to, fool with a cow like that.
Right. But they'll get an understanding of what it takes, and maybe it will propel them into, hey, this is truly what I want to do, or I need to be doing something else.
Okay. So basically, they'd start off by kind of learning the general fundamentals of what that career path could look like for them.
Right.
And then the further they get along, they start to see more intricate, specific elements of that particular career or that path, different directions they can go in.
And even some of our pathways even have, it's more extensive than that. They have what they call a capstone course. And with a capstone course, you may have to go in more detail and do more research and do more work toward getting even a deeper understanding of that field.
Yeah.
In STEM, you have capstone course, and in business, there is a capstone course, but we don't offer it this year. But in the coming years, we may offer capstone course in business as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then your senior would come out having a couple of certifications possibly,
Possibly, yes.
and knowing, well, as much as you can know at
Yeah.
18, right? Knowing what direction they want to go in, whether that results in going to school to become a veterinarian or going on to become a welder,
Right.
and they will have been doing some of that work in high school, maybe.
Well, we've
Sounds like.
had several young ladies, not just young ladies, and young men as well that have gotten their CNA certification. So that's certified nursing assistant. We've had them as young as the 10th grade. They got to get their CNA. Most of them are 11th and 12th graders. We've had some young men and young women, and some of them have been able to go in and work at the nursing home through our health occupations track. We've had the young ladies, primarily young ladies, get certified in what they call patient care technicians. And some of them have gone on and done well. We'd like to see them go on and become what they call BSN, having a bachelor's of science in nursing. And, the higher you go up the scale, theoretically, the more money you can make. I know a lot of times it's not all about money, but if somebody offers you $18 an hour or $25 an hour for a position, you probably would take the $25.
I'm going to take the $25 an hour.
Yes.
Absolutely. Without pause.
Right.
Well, that's good. And so I guess all of this just further validates the fact that so many of our kids, especially in these rural areas,
Right.
where it's so funny because you don't think about these things until you're like outside of that little area, but how much these kids don't really see
Right.
on a regular basis. So they're not walking into or walking past or driving by. We'll just use a veterinarian's office as an example. They're not riding by NASA's offices seeing,
Right.
oh, I could become, they're not seeing pilots walk around everywhere. In general, they're probably not even seeing, like your day-to-day run-of-the-mill military guys either, to where they can really see what else is out there.
And that's another thing that we do. We do set up field trips. One that really comes to mind that really caught my attention was FlightWorks in Mobile and Airbus. Airbus makes, it's a French company, but they're based in Mobile, and they make these passenger planes that hold anywhere from 120 to 180 passengers. And the kids go, not just the kids, adults.
Everybody
We went
learns
and we
something.
saw this, how materials come in and from the fuselage, and they're going, by in the end of 30 days, they've gotten, when it comes out the other end, it's a plane. And they get to see the workings of how these workers, they have to work together in tandem to create this product that when they get through building it, it's worth about $20 million. And they get to see the people that started on the apprenticeship level, because when we went to Airbus, they told us that the color of their uniforms dictated their positions. And so the ones that came in that were working as interns, they had the blue on, and by the time they worked there for 6 months, I think they had gone up to $25 an hour, and some of them were going to be making, within a year, they were going to be making $30 an hour. That's motivation for a kid in a technical career. And making that kind of money if you're making $30 an hour, you can feed yourself. You can house yourself. You can be a productive member of society, and you can do something that you really enjoy. And so by going to Airbus and seeing that, by going to FlightWorks and seeing the simulators, the kids really get an idea of something that they probably never would have seen before, because they never would have had the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for there just to be deliberate efforts for these things, like what y'all are doing. Because like I said, I remember someone that he was like 10, 11 years old, and they asked him what he wanted to do when he grew up. And he said he wanted to be a bag boy at the grocery store, at the local grocery store. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it just is a testament to how what you see, especially as a young kid, and your perception of what you see, is so heavily impacts what you think you can do.
So
for sure.
At Hillcrest and at the WDC, we would try to create opportunities for these students to firsthand to see, whether it's taking them to Flight Works, taking them to, it may be a college, taking them to an experience. We have different companies, Weyerhaeuser, they're a tier 1 or tier 2 supplier for Hyundai. They take them to trips to Weyerhaeuser. I don't know if they ever did a tour of the Conecuh sausage plant, but I'm sure there's somebody that might find that to be a career that they're interested in. So we have these tours set up, and we have guests and guest speakers. We do have the military coming in. In fact, tomorrow they're having an event where we got different people coming in. The military is coming in tomorrow. And when they see these people dressed up with these uniforms on and said, hey, I might be able to do that. And in fact, my son is coming to speak at Hillcrest on Veterans Day. And so when they see him, who has been down there and has coached them, and now they see him dressed up in his uniform and represent the United States of America, and they'll get an indication, man, I can do that too. And so that's one of the big things that we want to promote is that, even though you're from Evergreen, Alabama, you can go on and do great things.
Yeah. And let's be real. A lot of us come out of college after those 4 years and either have no clue what we're doing, what we're going to do, B, think we do, but soon realize that either it's not for us or it just isn't what we thought it was. Like, I graduated with a degree in rehabilitation services.
Okay.
Ask me how many times I've had to use that I can specifically recall.
Okay.
None.
I'm business administration and
haven't used any of it. And there are things that you learn from every experience you go through. So I'm sure there's something that I've used in some capacity. But I mean, I'm a project manager. It's just, there's no telling what life is going to throw at you. There's no telling what other things can materialize out of you just taking a step. Right. And so these kids getting exposure now is absolutely needed because it shows them that there's more outside of this bubble, outside of their world, outside of where they are sitting at the time. So that's step one. Then once they get out there and they start working and they've got the tools that they need to actually execute and to be productive citizens and to make money, to take care of themselves, all of that, there's just so much more that can parlay into. And it starts to, I think, with knowing that there's more, having been shown that, but also having the confidence to be like, okay, I've accomplished this so far. Now let me take on the next thing. And I think that also is an element that starts with people like you and what y'all are doing at the school now.
And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to expose, and we're going to continue to motivate, and we're going to continue to just hopefully nudge these kids in the right direction, and so we can get a positive return on their investment.
Sure. So I'll ask you this. What would your advice be to parents right now, specifically in our underserved or just rural areas with children trying to navigate and buy into their educational journey as a whole? What would your advice be to them as they try to build them up and get them through?
If I could talk to the parents, one of the first things I would say is get involved and get consistently involved. Realize that we are not the enemy. Come to us.
We being the educators.
Yeah, okay. Come to us with open mind and open heart, and just know we're on the side of trying to better your child's situation. So we're trying to educate, we're trying to prepare, and we're trying to motivate. And so become deeply invested, because it is an investment into your children's lives. And just know that we're trying to, with career tech education, just expose them to some things that could help break this cycle of poverty. And a lot of it in the black belt, it's a lot of poverty. And by preparation, certification, you're taking steps to overcome that cycle. So if you will, just be with us, when we're trying to educate your children, just let them know that. And now I think it's a good thing with requiring a college readiness indicator, because it pushes that child to invest themselves in one of these 8 to 9 areas. And by applying himself more, maybe even if he's not motivated, it will kind of nudge him and give him some motivation. So make your children come to school. Make them come to school consistently. Make them come to school, because if they come to school, they will learn. They will learn. And when they're missing school, they're missing out. And so, I came from a household, you couldn't miss school. And that was just it.
Same.
Yeah. So yeah, come to school, and if they put something into it, they would definitely get something.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else, any other nugget, anything you want to leave us with that you think just the world needs to know this right
Well,
now?
by coaching for as long as I've coached, I found out that the same principles that you apply in coaching is teaching. Coaching is nothing but teaching. You start with your fundamentals, you build on your fundamentals, and once you build on those fundamentals, the real world application of it, now it's game time. So it's the same with career tech education, foundation. Now you advance. You may have a capstone. And once you get to that point, now you get in the real world and you just apply what you've learned. And hopefully that will pay off into, a good to great paying job, a stable employment situation, and a way for you to become a successful member of society. Because when kids come to school and they are engaged,
Yeah.
they tend to not get in trouble. And so we have to look at it through that lens and just try to keep these kids engaged in something that is interesting, something that's going to hold their attention, and something that's going to be worth their while now and in the long.
Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me today. I think we got a lot of very good information, a lot of just insight into what's going on in programs like yours, and emphasizing the importance of them right now, and how that aligns with what's going on in the rest of the world as well. So I thank you. Thank you so much, Coach Crum.
You're welcome.